When you pass away, they say, Ilanga lishonile.
Our belief is AmaZulu that the king never dies.
Majesty, our king, has transitioned to higher service. May God give us wisdom to grieve as people with hope.
I'd say there was a deep sense of loss. A few weeks before, there were constant rumors that he is in hospital, that he's not well, and on several occasions the family had to come out and say, no, the king is fine. Yes, it was a shock in the sense that it didn't seem like him catching COVID-19 would ultimately lead to him passing away.
He goes now to his ancestors and joins the line of kings. Wena wendlu bayede laluphumule sithula isikandaba laluphumule impande kaZulu bejani liphuma esiqhiwini kade balivalele dlanga lomhlabathi bayede.
Sinokudabuka kakhulu ngenkosi yethu ngoba besiyithanda kakhulu.
The way we respect him, actually he's our member of the club, though he is the king. He's also a Buto member, motorcycle club. So that's why we came as many as we can.
He had connections everywhere, India, everywhere. He had that connection. So for me, I think it's that unity factor that he has always had, and he has always been welcoming.
We pray that we can be able to teach the young one about isiko lethu lomkhosi womhlanga, because sikubonile ukubaleka kwalo kuthina ukuthi umkhosi womhlanga uyini.
Ubayede uyisibani sengane zethu, ubayede ubesiphathele isizwe sethu enganeni zethu, ubeyikho konke kithi.
The entire nation was very much attached to the Zulu monarch, and he was leading all the ceremonies. It affected them badly.
He's the longest serving monarch. He was actually due to celebrate his 50-year jubilee in 2021 when he passed away.
God granted him longevity and we reaped the rewards. He carried his burden with dignity.
I'd say many Zulus felt that we'd lost an institution, a voice of reason.
He is the custodian of Zulu culture, traditions, customs, both living and tangible heritage, as well as the language of AmaZulu, which is isiZulu. When the king passed on, firstly, it's not something that is announced immediately, because in the past there were wars and there were enemies. So it was something that was kept a secret, and when everything was prepared, then the nation would be informed so that the yamakhosi and people will flock to the palace to pay their respect.
The royal family understands the discontent about not being able to give their king a fitting send-off, but the mourning period can't be allowed to become a super spreader event.
I know that there are many subjects of the king who are not happy, so measures have been put in place to avert this. Mina njengoNdunankulu wesizwe ngithi kufanele nihlakazeke manje. Kusakazekani.
It was unfortunate that, the family had to say, well, actually, please don't descend upon this palace. We are trying to maintain the COVID-19 protocols as much as possible.
Just after the king esitshaliwe, then the mourning period began. But it was shorter because the king left an instruction that it must not take longer. In the past, when the king passes on, people will not go to the fields and plant and do whatever that touching the soil, because that's where the king was supposed to be buried or achalwe. So soil was very much important, that no one touches it.
It's a very private ceremony that has to take place in the early hours of the morning, and only very few people are also, even from within the family, are a part of that ceremony, and that's when certain rituals are done. We don't know what exactly gets done, but you also have to do it before the sun rises again. And, the place at which the king is interred is very secret. Amabutho are the warriors of the Zulu nation. They're the blanket of the king. So everywhere the king goes, you'll find Amabutho.
Because Amabutho, they are ingubo yobukhosi. They always accompany the king wherever he goes, as well as Inyusi. Then Inyusi will recite izibongo zenkosi.
They would be the ones also who would be taking charge and would be front and center when it comes to the interring of the remains of the late king. On the day of the late king's remains being fetched, it was chaotic. But when we get to Ngonyama town, it is a buzz. It is packed. At this point, because the family now is already inside the mortuary, there isn't anybody who's necessarily communicating what's going on. You have the Zulu maidens, you have Amabutho, then you just have the general public just surrounding the area. At some stage, I think one of my colleagues must have walked 2 kilometers on air following Amabutho with their camera handheld until they got to us. And because it was like a relay, the likelihood of the weather changing, especially when you're fetching a king, that it's likely to rain, but that's a sign, that's a blessing, that the ancestors are welcoming then the spirit of the late king. The cortege started initially it was moving slowly, but because of time, because we were told that the sun cannot set with the remains of the late king having not arrived at the palace.
The reason why the king is buried in the early hours is because it is our belief as AmaZulu that the king never dies, so that when the sun rises, he is also up to look after the nation.
Just before entering the palace, there is a bit of a stretch of road. And when we got there, we also had to stop so that certain, practices can be observed, such as having a member of the family declare to, because you are speaking to his spirit, by the way, when you're leaving the cemetery and you're explaining what is happening. So there was a stage at which we stopped now where they're saying we're now at the gates of your palace. This is where your remains are going to be until you're interred, as now the hearse flanked by Amabuto slowly then made its way into Kwaketo Mtanda.
That rain, unomkhubulwane, which symbolizes that everything is going well. If there's a ceremony that is taking place, the rain shows that everything is going well or it went well.
We're all looking out to see which son would not be at the funeral.
Whoever is leading the nation must not come near a darkness, that shade.
The belief is that you can't have the energy of death around you, because as the king, you are the life of the entire nation. But then we got caught out as the media because Prince MisuZulu at the time, he was there, but remember, there was no coffin, so there were no remains, so actually he could be there. In the background, there was now beginning to be that simmering discussion about what was going to happen. You know, it was like, what now?
Today, in the presence of more than 200 members of the royal family, His Majesty King Goodwill Zwelithini Zulu's will was read by his lawyers. And in line with the wishes of His Majesty the King, the family would like to announce that Her Majesty Queen Mantombi Dlamini Zulu will act as the regent of the Zulu nation during the interregnum.
I think the logic there was because she's the great wife. And, you know, and this is some of the criticism that some have lodged against the late king, to say that the reason why also there was so much instability is because he just did not name somebody in his will. But those who are close to the king will tell you that there's a reason why he didn't do that, because there was the prospect of whoever is named as a successor, that their life would be in danger. So already by the time the will was being read out, and I mean, the will being read out and the estate being wound up are two different processes, right? So just the will in and of itself being read out, there were questions around legitimacy.
Following yesterday's memorial service for the late Regent, Her Majesty Queen Shiwe Mantombi Dlamini Zulu, the senior matriarch of the Zulu royal family, Queen Mavis Mazungu, gathered members of the family this morning to support one another and express sympathies.
One could have never anticipated that 3 or so odd weeks later, after the interment of the late king, that she too would pass away, leaving the AmaZulu nation in yet again another state of disarray. Yeah, that was devastating. So as in the sun has set again.
People are sad. They just received the news. It was very unexpected.
Things always have take a dramatic turn with this story.
You know, it felt like they're going to war.
Everything is moving at lightning speed, eh? That's when I started hearing banging of doors.
Wait. We forbid the media.
Chaos and pandemonium are unfolding here. Touch and go situation. I can tell you that at the moment I heard.
The late Regent appears to have succumbed to COVID-19.
It's understood in a hospital in Johannesburg.
The unexpected passing of Her Majesty Queen Mantombi Dlamini Zulu.
None of us could have anticipated the passing away of the Queen Regent. You have the late king passing away. Now you have the Queen Regent passing away in the context of some within the family not really wanting her to be the one to be the regent until a successor has been found. And then some 3.5 weeks later, she too now passes away, and it just creates a sense of confusion, uncertainty. What is going to happen now? Just when we thought there was some sort of a transitional plan in place, that too was thrown into disarray. But I think what was more heartbreaking is that there was now a family that was orphaned within a short space of 3.5 weeks without having been given enough space and room and time to mourn the passing away of your father. Now it's your mother.
Very good morning to you once again. Well, we have just witnessed the remains of the late regent of AmaZulu nation, that's Queen Mantombi Dlamini Zulu, departing for KwaNongoma today.
This is indeed a double blow for the Zulu nation. They've expressed how...
So I remember I was with Linda that day when we were sent to Hillbrow Mortuary, where we saw a lot of Amabuto waiting outside. Apparently, the body of the Queen was there. So Amabuto were just paying homage and also waiting for her to come out of the mortuary so they accompany her body to KZN.
This is a moment that's been described as never seen before. It's uncharted territory that the Zulu nation is without a leader in such a short space of time, passing of the king and then the regent.
We're a touch before the main gate of the engena Royal Palace.
When we talk about Queen Mantombi, she was the regent queen. So she had that elevated status. Amabuto were there because she was the regent queen.
Jovgaz. Jamin. Wenognen.
At 7 o'clock this Friday morning, the official provincial memorial service for the late regent Queen Mantombi Dlamini Zulu will be held this morning at the KwaZulu-Natal Royal Palace in KwaNongoma. She was interred in a private ceremony in the early hours of this morning.
The dynamics of this funeral were completely different. These children, they now have to take leadership of processes, of rituals, and this is at a time when now we know for sure that there are divisions within the family. And there was a huge delegation that came from Eswatini.
She became the great queen because of the royal blood in Swaziland. There was this relationship that was formed when King Zwelithini married Queen Mantombi. The nation paid lobola for King Zwelithini, and therefore they got married, and she was the princess that side, King Sopoza's daughter, and she became the queen this side.
We arrive at KwaZulu-Natal Royal Palace. It's quiet, but you can see that they're still in shock.
Again, we're asking ourselves, will Prince MisuZulu be in attendance? He was nowhere to be seen, and at the time we were told that he's in Swaziland because of now what seems to be, especially after the passing away of his mother, seemed to be a mounting speculation, let me say it, put it that way, that he is likely to be the successor to the throne.
I was working with my colleague Senzo Mahlobo, and we brief each other. I'm going to be next to the marquee to capture government delegates coming in.
I was doing sort of, the entrance of all the guests one by one. So I saw the sisters entering the marquee, but no one anticipated what was going to happen next. The program gets underway. Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi is there. Former President Jacob Zuma is there.
I sense something. You know what? Something is going to happen now. I hear a sound on my right.
And it was during one of the prayers, actually. It was just at the beginning of the service.
And I remember my colleague Uziyanda running towards me, pointing, "Go up, go up, go up." I could hear her, but I wasn't watching her because I remember I was live. Immediately, I got goosebumps because it felt like for a minute holding that shot, the singing, they were so in sync, the symbolism of the king being in the middle, it felt like they're going to war.
They literally made a grand entrance. I've never seen anything like it. They barged into the gates.
And I think for me, to be honest, the event started right there.
Of course, him being flanked by Amabutho was the message to say, you're the king. If Amabutho are recognizing you, does this mean that you're the king? Because Amabutho, like I said, serve at the pleasure of the king.
Breaking news, the will is now going to be read today at 5.
There's Prince MisuZulu in that vehicle. He's now arrived at the KwaZulu-Natal Palace, and of course the reading of that will cannot take place without him being present. You would have also seen Advocate Madonsela with his briefcase. He is the one who is carrying the will, and in fact he just said a short while ago that the reading of the will has not concluded, and in fact they are going to be changing venues from this particular palace, and he didn't quite divulge where exactly they're going.
Advocate Griffiths Madonsela just gave a bit of context. But when the will was signed, it was the 23rd of March. Of course, we all knew what we wanted to hear from this will, and here it goes.
The whole royal family is here. This is a God-given moment that we're all here. At this moment, then, I think the platform to Advocate Madonsela as to read the will of the late king.
Nina Benkosi, the task that befalls me weighs heavily. After the untimely demise of our king, Isilo Samabanda Onke, King Goodwill Zwelithini, the need to fill up the position of the fallen king has arisen. His Majesty the King, during his lifetime and through his last will and testament, bestowed upon me the singular honor to succeed him and to assume the role of the Zulu monarch.
In the middle of the reel being read, I could hear just bits and pieces of memory behind. But quickly it subsides.
I believe it to be appropriate and befitting of the great Zulu nation to bestow the honor given to me by His Majesty to my son, lomtwana MisuZulu-Zulu. I accordingly invite Your Excellencies to support my decision and identify lomtwana MisuZulu-Zulu as the person who should assume the position of the King of the Zulu nation. Yours faithfully.
And as I'm still looking down at my phone, there's Prince Thokozani standing up, and I see this exchange between Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi and Thokozani, and he's saying, "Hlala phansi, musukanga."
Musukanga wena. Musukanga. Hlala phansi. Musukanga wena. Hlala phansi. Hlala phansi.
I remember taking off my camera off the tripod right there and there because I realized that something is going to happen.
Ngokwencwadi le okhuluma ngayo ethulwa isina council uMadonsela yangomhla ka-23 March, effectively Indlovukazi abdicated the throne ngoba ngokwe-will ihlala esidlula uma kuyilo kuyoba lo lweNgonyama iyakusho lokho ukuthi mangena umntana enkosi uyakuba ngubani. Ipoint lami ukuthi she abdicated the throne and therefore ubengasakwazi-ke ukuthi engaqoka omunye ngoba she had vacated the throne. In a nutshell, kufanele kuphume provincial government gazette kukhishwe i-certificate of recognition. Okwesithathu ku-informwe i-provincial house. Sifisa izo-ke izinto lezo engavumela Indlovukazi ukuthi iyenze iwini. Okunye so ngokwami-ke noma bengacisha bendaba obangikhuluma bendaba.
While the drama was happening, the commotion was happening, I saw the king being whisked away.
I didn't even see Prince MisuZulu get out of his seat. All I remember was our producer coming to our camera saying, "He's gone."
You're running away, you're holding this shot. At the back of your mind, you're hoping that nothing happens. No one is going to get shot. You could see there's a guy who's wearing a white shirt.
Wait.
Switch that thing off.
It's only when we get to the main door of the house and now the convoy is already on standby.
I can tell you that guns have been called for at this stage. It was at that very moment that Prince MisuZulu shot up very quickly, and I mean,
everything is moving like at lightning speed, eh?